I'm driving through these narrow alleys. There are stuntmen and extras, and the stuntman fell in front of me, and I averted, and a door opened. I cut right and cut left and shut the door and kept driving, and the entire crew came out and applauded, and it was just this epic moment. How you doing? I'm Adrien Brody. We're here with Vanity Fair, and we're watching scenes from films throughout my career. Let's have some fun.
That's a terrible thing to say.
Well, I don't mean it to be. I just don't want you to get the feeling that you're better friends with him than we are, or something weird like that. And also, you can't leave your wife just because she's pregnant. Jack agrees with that too, right, Jack?
Stop including me. I was his favorite.
I love the way Wes shot this.
Blood
It's
all
so
over,
great.
laying in the street right before he died.
Oh my God, it's so good.
How is that supposed to make us feel?
I love Wes Anderson. I love Wes Anderson for not only what he's given us all in his unique work, but for this in particular life experience, and for living in India for months with these guys and working on a moving train every day, and for all of that beautiful creativity and the way he, just looking at this scene, the way he shot it and how he does these kind of long moving masters, but how myself and Jason Schwartzman enter the mirror reflection. And so we're seeing all the characters. One is a shot on one individual, then you're seeing the reflection through the other, plus the double image, and then through the doorway where the character is entering and coming and going. It's so beautifully constructed. It's so cool and fun and energetic, and I just love it.
Francis?
Yeah?
Here's your bell.
Stop!
There's humor and tragedy at the same time. That's what's really great. I mean, it's very funny, but it's got heart to it, which I love. There is a degree of complete slapstick humor that it incorporates, but it still has feeling, and it's a remarkable thing. I love this movie, and Owen is hilarious, but Jason as well, by the way. But Owen is just like a hilarious person to just hang out with.
You don't love me!
Yes, I do!
I love you too, but I'm gonna mace you in the face! Stop!
You know, we shot 5 hours one direction, or 4.5 hours one direction, and then the train would come back down the same tracks, and we'd go back to Jodhpur where we would start, and we'd pack a lunch. We'd work all day. We'd get up in the morning, 5-something in the morning. We'd have to be at the train station at 10 minutes to 6 if the train was departing at 6, and if you were late, you missed the set. So no one was late. There was no makeup. There was just, aside from Owen needing his apparatus for bandages, etc., drank a chai, had some oatmeal that was very spicy, and then went to work. We all lived in a house together, and they were really cool. Like, I bought a Royal Enfield. I had a motorcycle. I bought a motorcycle in India that I was going to ship home, and then it turned out that the motorcycle was not an export model motorcycle, so I had to sell it in India. And then I had to sell Owen. I had a scooter. I ended up selling Owen my scooter. It was hilarious. We were like brothers. And it was a really fun time in my life. And I'm really grateful to Wes because this is one of the first overtly comedic roles that a director had given me. And at this point in my career, I'd done The Pianist, I'd done these dramatic works, and I am relatively serious when I speak of the work, and because it's meaningful to me, but I think I have a sense. I crack myself up. I don't know if anybody else laughs, but I think things are funny all day long, including myself. You You. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Man, Peter Jackson does that stuff so damn well. I mean, wow. The original, the 30s one with Fay Wray in black and white and stop motion was the movie that made Peter Jackson want to become a filmmaker. And it was such a big deal for me. Just remarkable, like, to be a part of Peter's dream project after doing Lord of the Rings. And it just was very, very exciting. As this scene progresses, it leads into this whole Times Square scene where Kong is just wreaking havoc on everything. And Jack knows he needs to pull him away from this densely populated area. And he hops in an old 30s taxi cab and a chase ensues. And that was one of the most fun days I've ever had on any movie set ever in my life. I grew up in New York and Queens and drag racing, street racing my whole youth and my teenage years and building muscle cars. And I'd bragged to Peter about my driving skills. And I showed up on set and he surprised me and he said, "You're driving today." And they had a souped up, completely rigged, like racing transmission, racing engine in the body of a 30s taxi with side-mounted cameras, a rear-mounted camera, front-mounted camera, and I did the entire stunt driving sequence in that movie and in that scene. And in one moment, there was, I'm driving through these narrow alleys. There were literally inches on side of either of the cameras that were side-mounted. There are stuntmen and extras, and the stuntman fell in front of me, and I averted him, and a door opened on the taxi, and I cut right and cut left and shut the door and kept driving. And the entire crew came out of the building they were all hiding behind and applauded. And it was just this epic moment. It was so fun.
There are different types of love.
It's actually a pretty upsetting scene where my character, Noah Percy, discovers that Joaquin's character is finding himself in a relationship with the girl that my character's been very close with, who's been caring for him for so long. I'm often drawn to portraying people who have to come to terms with some kind of torment or circumstances that are hard. I'd like to do that as honestly as I can. The only pressure I feel is that I can find a way to hone in on that and tell it with a degree of honesty and empathy. Oh, I love Joaquin. I mean, wonderful thing that M. Night Shyamalan did, who directed the film, was he created this real sense of community. We were playing people who lived in this utopian society. I lived in a house with William Hurt, Sigourney Weaver, Bryce Dallas Howard, and Joaquin was in the guest cottage. And then Joaquin moved out at some point, and I got the guest cottage. But I was there with my dog, and we all ate together, and we did a full-on retreat in the woods where we lived in a tent, and I prepared food. Very challenging, but meaningful. This film is incredibly meaningful to me. It was quite an undertaking, one that I felt immense responsibility. And in this scene, we're at the very end of the film, Vladislav Spielman, the character that I portray, he's been reduced to a shell at that point. We shot in reverse chronology, so I had to do a crash starvation diet and then gain the weight back rapidly so that we can shoot the beginning of the film in spring, and we shot in the wintertime here. And I was 129 pounds in the dead of winter in Poland. It was incredibly cold. We shot in former Soviet barracks outside of Berlin. I just was talking to my mom about this the other day, and the beauty of growing up in New York City, and how my understanding of character really came from the many years of taking the train to drama school from Queens. I remember in my youth witnessing a tremendous amount of homelessness. And because the winters are brutal in New York, I kind of would always notice the hands of these homeless people that are frostbitten and gnarled, and their mobility is impaired. I felt that this composer and eloquent, successful musician, his manual dexterity is just, like a surgeon's. To have it lose that, to have that eroded, as well as the physical being to be reduced, and to then be faced with having to try and bring it back alive and remember it. And the opening of that scene, I, as the character, contemplate my hands, and I remember looking at them in a way as if they're not going to work, and the memories of what used to be. And it's very tragic. And then he begins to play slowly at first, and then plays the beautiful, I believe that's the ballade, and it's just so, it's just wonderful. It's the power of art triumphing in spite of all of that darkness.
When is this gonna end? I'm here in separate planes. I gotta say, I don't like betting on blood feuds.
It ends with me in control, slap wrists, and a payout. That stuff, sea mist, vapor.
I love the show, and I love the tremendous work that everyone involved in the show has done. The writing is spectacular. It's just a great show. It's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. I had signed on to do Winning Time. Adam McKay was also involved with the creation of Succession, and his team and HBO had mentioned that there was this role that was right for me. So I said, hell yeah, this sounds great. And then I had wonderful discussions with the writers, and they pretty much embellished this scene for me, because I had felt that it needed a bit more bite, because these guys are omnipotent, and you really want this guy to come in and put the pressure on, and I want to do that. And I thought how exciting it was to step into that world with these powerful guys and just swimming in with the sharks and get in there and show them what's up.
But I have a gun at your head. And I need to know if this is gonna be a functional situation. And I'm sure you're gonna say, yes, it is gonna be a functional situation. But I'm gonna need to hear you say that it's a functional situation. So, can you work together?
Uh-huh.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh, fuck.
There was a lot of humor in this one for me too, because he's the kind of billionaire that fancies himself a man of the people, and like kind of earthy and connected, and he definitely exudes a tremendous amount of power. So I had a lot of fun playing with the costume and being prepared and outsmarting them, and being prepared for inclement weather, and taking them on this hike that ensues after this meal. And I knew they'd rock up in their loafers and try to have this business meeting where they soothe me on my concerns of their power struggle. And I just put them to the test. I have my boots on and my layers, and it's just hilarious. It was so much fun.
It is my understanding that many of the sites of my projects had survived. They remain there, still in the city.
The aspirations of the film really speak to me on many levels. One, as an artist, as someone who wants to leave behind a body of work that is of some significance. Even distilling work in a film is similar to an architect erecting a building and creating something. There's a foundation of work. There is a physical thing that is left behind and that speaks to future generations and has an emotional core that has the potential to inspire conversation. This was such a beautifully written and complex screenplay.
I expect for them to serve instead as a political stimulus, sparking the upheavals that so frequently occur in the cycles of peoplehood.
It speaks also to the immigrant experience, which people from many different backgrounds can relate to, especially in our country. And that's something I understood very well because I am the son of a Hungarian immigrant. My mother, she and my grandparents fled Hungary and fled Budapest in 1956 during the Hungarian Revolution and lost everything, left everything behind. And it was particularly hard for my grandfather as the language barrier was more challenging for him. My grandmother spoke 5 or 6 languages and was able to find work, and I just remember how much they've sacrificed, and I never took that for granted. And then to find a role that speaks to that and what must be overcome to begin again and to become American, for me to be an American who grew up in New York and to have had the potential for the opportunities I have in my life means a lot. And to speak to that in my work means a lot. I'm very grateful that this film came my way. Thank you again for sitting with me as we went through some scenes from films throughout my career.